Morning, everyone. First of all, I'd just like to thank FINA for inviting me to talk at such a prestigious event. And Andrea, I'll speak to you afterwards. You've really put me to shame with your presentation. Unbelievable presentation this morning by Andrea, really technical and scientific. And I hope I'm not going to bore you with what I've put together here. I've been asked to talk about the preparation plan, training versus competition, which I'm sure most of you already know. So some of the things I'm going to talk to you about, I'm sure you're already doing. And believe me, when I talk about it and mention certain things, I've basically learned everything I know and still learning from all the people that are sitting here. So I don't think there's anything new that I'm going to talk about here. And just like to thank all of you. And I've got some friends sitting here that, unbeknown to them, I've most probably picked their brain and used what I've wanted to use to suit my program and to suit moving forward with my swimmers. So I hope I can offer something back to you here. As just a bit of background, I've had my introduction, so I don't need to stay there. Okay, so the pre-season planning, selecting the major competitions. As I said, I'm sure most of you do this. Coaches, we sit down and we discuss which are the major competitions throughout the year. I just happen to have a slide there of the Commonwealth Games, because obviously that was our most recent major competition for us, long course. Not saying that the competition coming up in the next couple of days isn't a major competition, but for our country and for our Olympic Committee, obviously the Commonwealth Games was a major competition for us this year. And why I've also used that slide in selecting the major competition, because there were various other competitions that took place this year. There was obviously the Pan Pacs as well, which was another big competition for us, but I just felt that the Commonwealth Games had more importance for us as a country and for my athletes than the Pan Pacs. So we kind of opted out of Pan Pacs. We did send a team there, but the likes of Chad and Miles Brown and swimmers like that, we decided to rather concentrate on Commonwealth Games, because I just felt it was just too much to choose both. But how I work is, and I'm sure, as I've said, most of you do it, you select your major competitions and you work backwards through your season and work out how you're going to prepare your athletes for those major competitions. And it's just basically planning like anything else in everyday life. You know, that's the goal. That's what you've got to work towards. Work backwards and then work forward. So it's quite a joke we have with the coaches back home, that we work backwards to work forwards, and that's just the way we do it. I'm going to talk about how we prepared for Olympic Games in 2012. Okay. Because I think that's the best example I can give to you of how we planned that going into 2012. And it all started where, obviously, we had an idea that 2012 was going to be a really big year for Chad, and we started to plan it, I would say, from around about 2010, right about the time of the World Short Course in Dubai, where he became World Short Course Champion. We realized that he would have a really good chance in 2012 in London. So we decided to plan our training camps and competitions around that. And we sat down and we worked backwards from 2012 to work forwards. And obviously the norm for us was every year to go to Europe, so it suited us. We tend to go to Europe in our winter, European summer, and that really suits us. So what we do is we had a run the year before, 2011, where we go into Europe around about the end of May, and we compete on the Mare Nostrum series in Europe. And I really like going to that series. I've been there 14 years now, so it's like second home for me, the Mare Nostrum. And I've met quite a few of you there on the Mare Nostrum. And once again, I've learned from all of you how to do it. I learned a lot of things on the Mare Nostrum, watching other great coaches and great athletes perform there, and picking up the things that I needed to use to make my athletes really good. So we went into 2011 into the Mare Nostrum series and prepared, even though the World Championships that year was in China, we still decided to go to Europe for our pre-camp and everything because we were preparing for London 2012. So we wanted to get used to Europe and what was going to happen that side next time round going into London. So we went into to Europe on the Mare Nostrum in that 2011. Did our Mare Nostrum series, and then we found a little place in Italy called Pescara. I'm sure Andrea knows the place quite well, but it was a really good base for us to have a training camp there. So we decided we'll spend a few weeks there just to get used to it. As I said, we were preparing for the year after 2012, and we stayed in Pescara and had a training camp there, and then we decided to go home for a short break before we went on to Singapore for a small camp before the World Champs in China. And that was the starting point of the major preparation for the competition coming up, 2012 Olympic Games London. And what we decided to do, it was going to be a tough call for us, especially having the athletes away for so long. And I just made the call that I just said that we needed to do the long haul. We had to stay out of South Africa over our winter. We don't have too many indoor swimming pools there, so we always run the risk of our athletes getting sick. I mean, to pitch at a swimming pool with 0 degrees or 2 degrees or 3 degrees is a bit of a risk for us. And believe it or not, it does get that cold in South Africa. You always hear about sunny South Africa, but I think the weather's changed quite a bit. And we just decided we'd stay in Europe. So we actually went to Europe, and we were in Europe for 10 weeks before London. And 10 weeks is a really long time to be away. And, we were fortunate enough that we've got Princess Charlene in Monaco that really helped us out, the team. And we started our preparation for London and staying in Europe for 10 weeks. So, the training camps we're prepared for, we checked that out the year before. We were very happy with Pescara in Italy, and obviously Monaco wasn't such a bad place to kind of spoil the athletes before we went into London. So we kept that for the last week before we went into London, and it's a bit of a pun, but we were treated like a royalty there in Monaco 1 week before London. So it kind of worked out really nice for us. And so we spent the time on the Mare Nostrum, obviously racing, and I'll talk about that a little further on about how I plan to do the racing and the training at the same time. A lot of people always ask me, when does Chad train? We're always traveling around the world, but we're actually training when we're traveling around the world. But going back to that year of 2012, so we spent time in Europe on the Mare Nostrum. Then we went over and we sat in Pescara in Italy for a couple of weeks there and did some really big work before we went back to Monaco to start our taper going into London for the games. And just choosing those facilities, choosing the training venues that we were happy with really suited us. I think the Swedes were also in Pescara before London as well, so it wasn't like we had found this jewel that no one knew about. I think a lot of people know about the place, and it really does suit us, and that's what we were using. So what I'm trying to tell you there is, selecting your training camps and your competitions is really important if you can find the right places that suit you and obviously that suit the budget that I'll talk about a little later. Selecting the pre-major competition meets. So, as I said, I've been to the Mare Nostrum 14 years, and I've basically been using the Mare Nostrum as a major pre-competition warm-up meet, so to speak. If you followed Chad's progress over the last 3-4 years, maybe even longer, maybe 5 years now, we've always gone to the Mare Nostrum. I really, really do enjoy that series, and the reason being is because of all of you, you taught me how good the series was. I've been going to the series in the late 90s, and it's really good competition. It's fun, so to speak, but it's tough competition, and the guys are getting up and racing hard, not shaving, and really going for it there. And it's really good racing. It's good weather. It's your European summer, So it really suits us. So I've basically used that as my pre-major competition meets, preparing my athletes for major competition. And why I did that was, and earlier I heard Andrea talking about American football and things that he's based his club off on the American football system, having different people around him, like the physios and the doctors and the strength conditioning coaches and that. And I'm a big favor of football, not American football, football. And I'm a big fan of Alex Ferguson, Man United, so they're not doing too good at the moment, but good win last night. But if you've read his book and you listen to the way he coached the last couple of years or whatever, Andrea's 100% right on what he's saying. The whole sport of swimming has changed, and the way Ferguson puts it is it's no more just about the coaching aspect of it. It's about how you're managing each athlete. Because let's face it, we're starting to manage superstars. These swimmers are becoming superstars in the world of sport. We've got some really big names out there now, and they're becoming really professional, and they have very big egos. And once you start to have one or two of these athletes in the same room with these big egos, it starts to become a problem, and well, not so much a problem, but you need to know how to manage it. And I think Ferguson, if you think about it, he must probably had about 22 in the squad. You think about it, those are 22 superstar football players earning £300,000 a week. I don't think that any one of them there have got a small ego, So he did a great job managing 20 out of the most elite athletes in the world, and I've tried to do that now with what I'm doing with my team now. Obviously, I don't have the superstars that he had there, but hopefully we go that way. But going back to why I'm talking about football is because a lot of people have been asking me, you're never home, you're always out there racing Chad on a lot of meets, and it's true, we race, like I said, the Mar Nostrum series. We like to go to Hungary and race their nationals. They have open nationals also in the European summer, and we've been once or twice to Italy to race a Sette Colli event there. And then we race all the World Cups. You've seen us racing all the World Cups. And the whole reason behind it is I looked at football, I looked at a few other sports, and if all those sports, the tennis players, the golf, they are constantly out there competing at the highest level all the time. And I thought, well, if they can do that and still get big results out of it, why can't our swimmers do it? So what I did was I just found a way to be able to incorporate the training into the racing and get the end result, which so far, touch wood, it seems to be working. And it's not just working for Chad. You would have noticed on the World Cups, there's a few other South Africans now starting to blossom on the World Cups, and it's working for us throughout the season. And it's just how you incorporate it all in. And that's obviously what I'm going to talk about. Obviously, it's depending on the year and which athlete you're working with. They're not all the same, as I mentioned earlier. You've got Chad who thrives on the short course. He's really good at his underwater work. He really thrives on the World Cups. And then you've got a guy like Miles Brown, who's obviously a little bit of a distance swimmer, so we have to be a little bit careful. We learned the hard way, I think. I think we realized that he couldn't do as much competition as Chad could do in the short course series and be able to still deliver a bigger result at the end of what we were gearing up for. So it's really important, depending on the year, what competition you're going for and which athlete you're working with. The next one there, the B, and the first one, budgets, I think is probably the most important one for all of us. But in saying that, I think a lot of you will be shocked if you had to know the kind of budgets that we have to work with. So, budget shouldn't actually play a role too much if you can make a plan. And in South Africa, we can tend to make a plan quite often, and a lot of people think that we must probably flying around the world and we're making it all happen there, but a lot of the time on our budget restraints and all that, sometimes we're actually fitting the bill. So don't think we're out there with an endless pit of money and we can just travel around the world. So if you really want it and you want to get out there and make this kind of project work for you with the racing and training aspect, you'll make it work. You'll find some way to make that budget stretch and move around and make things happen. That slide there, believe it or not, that's here in Doha. And why that's there is because over the last year and a half, myself and Rowan Taylor have joined up with Aspetar and Aspire here in Doha, and we come out here and do training camps over here. I don't think too many know about it, but it's not a big secret now. I think people are starting to learn about it. They've got a beautiful facility here in Doha, and for the first time last year, we tried a little bit of altitude work. So you're wondering where the altitude is. They have the altitude chambers here at the facility. So basically, we're living high and training low, and I think it's starting to pay off for us. The kids really enjoy it. The environment and the facilities are unbelievable here. It's top notch, and they really take care of us here. And we have this program running right up until Rio 2016. So, and it's interesting that Rowan from Australia and myself are both on the project, and we didn't really know that each of the others were on the project until we met here on one of the World Cups, I think, and then we discussed it, and it was quite interesting. It's just a matter of time now when we're going to clash or maybe even meet up and work together on one of our camps here in Doha. I've mentioned there with the weather, obviously planning your camps and your competitions around the world. The weather plays a big part. For us, you'll notice in South Africa, we basically home over our summer because our weather, I'm quite proud to say it, our weather I think is the best weather in the world to train with. And I know a lot of teams have been out there. The Dutch have actually been to my pool before, and the Hungarians have been coming out there for the last 6 years to my facility there in Durban, and the weather is really great for us. So in the winter of Europe and that, it's a great summer in South Africa, and the teams have been coming out, and it's kind of we swap over. So they come to our summer and we go to their summer, and I think it's really important. I mean, to be able to train. So let's say you have 10 months of the year you're in summer. You can really get a much better result from the athletes training in the warm weather and getting some good work done. What we've tried to do now is also put in some competitions, because we know a lot of European teams are out in South Africa. I know the Swedes come a lot. As I said, the Dutch, the Polish team have been out a few times. The British come out a lot. So what we're trying to do is find out most of the time when they're coming, and we're going to try to put on a Grand Prix series so that they can also have some competition while they're there in South Africa. I think that's been repeated. Slide. Okay. Which major competitions? I have touched on that, but I think there's a slide missing. Okay. The major competitions, going into that major competition, how I plan with Chad and the swimmers that I work with, I really like to race a lot really close to the competition, and maybe 2 or 3 weeks out. I'm sure most of you are doing the same things as me with the coaching and that. I've spoken about the programs and that Chad has done before in the past, and that was not what the talk here was about. It was about how we plan going into the competitions and how we race in that. But with the major competitions, what I'll do with Chad is, obviously Chad is different to a lot of the other athletes, but he will not rest or taper, so to speak, as we call it. He will not taper so much before a major competition. And just to touch on that now, this competition coming up now, he's most probably going to have the longest taper he's ever had because he just had his wisdom teeth out. I think a lot of you saw that he just had his wisdom teeth out. So he's going to have quite a bit of rest now going into this competition. So I'm a little bit on the blind side here. I don't really know how he's going to compete, but going into any other major competitions, he doesn't rest more than about 5-6 days before a competition. And when you see him racing on a lot of the major competitions like World Cups and things like that, he's not too rested at those things. In fact, he's not rested. What we try to do is, and I'll jump the slide there, and you're going to see that I have to talk about the World Cups a little later in the presentation. I'm going to talk about what we do on the World Cups. But any of those other major competitions, and I'm not talking about the World Champs or Olympic Games, and now I'm talking about like the Mare Nostrums and things like that. We will still keep up our volume of work in that. Okay, so and people won't believe what I'm going to tell you, but we have a number that we like to keep at while he's swimming competition. So while he's on the Mare Nostrum, let's take the Mare Nostrum for example, he will still be swimming 10 k's a day on the Mare Nostrum. Okay, he'll do it in his warm-ups. That's not including his actual racing, but it's in his warm-ups, and we'll kind of plan it that he'll warm up pretty long in the morning, but it's not intense swimming. It's more aerobic based work and you know, drills and skills like that. And so he'll do a pretty long warm up in the morning of the heats, and then swim the heats, and then afterwards he'll have a pretty decent session after that. Obviously, you know, maybe 4.5 the one session, 5.5 the next session, and then race, and then hopefully he makes the final. If he doesn't make the final, then he has some really major training to do that afternoon. But normally he makes the final. Then when we go back to a final in the afternoon, he'll just do a normal gala warm-up. Chad's gala warm-up normally is around about 2 k's. Okay, and then he will race. And then after that, in the evening, that's where he'll do his another 4 or 5 k's. So making up his 10 k's every day. And we've stuck with that throughout his career, and the others are also doing it now. So when you see us on all those competitions, you must remember we are still training. A lot of people think we're not, but we are still training. Just maybe it varies with the intensity and things like that. But the mileage is still there, and I believe the racing substitutes for the intensity of the big, hard aerobic sets and that we need to do. So that's how we accommodate the two competitions, or competition and training. Going back to Doha and the facilities and the weather and that, yeah, you know, as I said, it's Doha's a really great camp and all that. The only one downside to it is the weather, obviously, because it's really hot here, and we have to spend a lot of time in those chambers. I think we were spending up to 15, when I say we, I wasn't in the altitude chambers. I started off for a while, but I couldn't take it anymore. So the kids were spending around about 15, 16 hours a day in those chambers, and you know, up to 2 weeks at a time we're here. So it can get pretty tough being able to do all this. Obviously, with all this planning, moving around the world and doing it, we have to have the buy-in of the athletes, and you can see there which athletes you're working with. That's really important, because I mean, if you don't get the buy-in of the athletes, it's impossible to do it. I'm really lucky that the athletes I'm traveling with at the moment have bought into the whole plan of the way I see things and the way we do things. But it's not easy. I mean, traveling for 10 weeks at a time with these athletes, I mean, I've got a young girl now, 15 years old, still studying at school. It's really difficult. So don't think the difficulties aren't there. And I'm sure that's all the questions that you're asking yourselves. How do you get around that? How are you coping with young athletes being able to go away from school and things like that? To be honest with you, I don't know how we're coping with it. We just make it happen. It's happening for us. Whether someone's looking after us, and we've been really lucky, the kids are still doing really well in school and that, and we've been able to travel around the world and race and do the things we're doing. But going back to the very beginning of the talk, where where I said, this is what we're doing. It doesn't mean that this is the blueprint of how to make a Chad Leclerc or Terence Park and whatever. I have been doing this for a long, long time. As I said, since the 90s. I mean, the early 90s, my favorite destination was going to the British age groups. I would take Terence Park and Charlene and people like that to those competitions. So it's not like it's something new I'm doing. I think just because of the magnitude and the way Chad's swimming at the moment, I think people have noticed it a bit more than what I was doing. So I was doing this back in the 90s already, and trying to instill this in my team that we need to train and race, because I really believe that there's no substitute for the racing. You know, we can do as many stand-ups as we like, and back home in South Africa, our level of competition is not as good as we'll get on a Mile Nostrum or World Cups and all that. So that's the whole reason why I get them out there, to try and get them to race at the top level as many times as we can. And as I said earlier, I've learned that all from you. You guys out there were doing it long before me. Remember, we were new back into the sport, and you know, I just watched how everyone was doing it. I came on the coaching scene when I was watching Thorpe and all these guys getting out there. They were racing the World Cups, racing all over, and doing these phenomenal performances. Inge de Bruin, Peter van Gogh, all of them, and that's where I was learning it all from. So you know, I picked what I needed to do to put it all together and plan it all. And over the years of experience traveling, like I said, 14 Mile Nostrums is quite a few Mile Nostrums. I remember we went to a World Cup in Gelsenkirchen in Germany. I think that was in Marcel's laughing there. That must have been at about 96 or something, 97 back then. So it's a long time ago that I've been doing all these things. I'll tell a story about the Gelsenkirchen. I think they had 6 lanes in the pool, 5 lanes in the pool. We arrived there. I came there with a young junior team, and I thought, we're going to do well at this World Cup. We'll at least make a final. And there were 5 lanes for a final. It was like crazy. But that's what we've been doing, and that's how we've planned it throughout the years over. And it's going to be no different going on for Brazil, other than this time around we may have to go to the other side of the world. I don't think we can come to Europe in 2016 and then make the big flight over to Rio right before the Olympics there. And so we'll have to look at another plan. We've got a few options waiting for us in America. But I can tell you the plan for next year, April. Unfortunately, I think there's 1 or 2 slides not showing the plan for next year. But the plan for next year is we'll come to Doha, obviously, to do our training camp at altitude, and then we'll move on to the Mile Nostrums. I think the series goes Cannes, Barcelona, and then Monaco. And then from there, we'll go to Italy and do our training camp there again, the same routine. We're going to put in Hungarian Nationals and then on to Kazan. So, you know, nothing will change for us. We'll stick to the same plan and use European summer. It'll be a long one for us next year. This year was not quite as long. We went home before we came back to the Commonwealth Games, which it was good for some things, but it wasn't great for the team because 1 or 2 kids did get sick, including Chad. So, you know, just being in summer and then going back to our winter and then coming back again to summer, it just didn't suit us. So I think next year will be another long 10 weeks in Europe. It's pretty tough to do, but if it has to be done, that's the way we do it. Which brings me to this slide. And this I was really asked to talk about in quite detail. This is one of my best competitions that I like to go to. I really enjoy the competition, that the way it's set up and the racing that gets done. That was the most recent pool there in Tokyo now. And the World Cups. What are the World Cups? For those of you who don't know, and I'm sure most of you do know what the World Cups are, but the World Cups for me, it's a great place for people to start to learn skills on starts, turns, and how to race. Okay, especially if you're doing a whole series. That you don't necessarily. I don't believe you have to do the whole series, but if you can throw in a couple of World Cups a year, you'll see how tough your athletes will really get. And I believe the World Cups made Terence Parkin, Chad Leclerc, all these swimmers that I've coached before. I think this has been the best place for them to learn how to really get up and race. So what is the World Cup? The World Cup, it's a professional circuit, normally consisting of 6 or 7 legs. This year the legs were Doha and Dubai. There was Hong Kong and Russia, Moscow, and then the last 3 legs, the Asian legs, it was Beijing, Tokyo, and Singapore. So as you can hear, it's pretty tough going. It's not easy going around the world like that. It takes about 2.5 months up, spread out over 2.5 months. But once again, the guys are not out there just going up and down and not doing their work. They still have to do their work. They still have to do their mileage. I mean, we get out there and do the work while we're racing. Once again, not completely shaved or whatever, and preparing for, and I used the World Cups this year to prepare for the World Short Course coming up here now in Doha. So there's always something why I'm using the World Cups and why we're doing it. But going back to what the World Cups are, and I'd like to talk a little bit about my thoughts on them and what I think what the way forward should be on the World Cups. My belief on the World Cups is, and I'm sure it's felt very strongly here by a lot of the coaches, and I know the swimmers for sure as well. It's a way for the swimmers to earn their money, for sure. I mean, there's really good prize money. FINA have really put together a good package of clusters plus overall prize money. And I think, for me personally, I think that the World Cups are the way forward for us to show the world how serious we are about our sport, and to bring it up to a level of possibly the tennis circuit or the golf circuit. The reality is that it's exciting, it's short course swimming. Obviously the main thing in world swimming, even for myself, even though I love the World Cups, is obviously the long course swimming, the Olympic Games, the World Championships, the long course major events. But that's like in tennis. They have the majors, and then they have all the other competitions in between. And I think that World Cup swimming, we need to get behind it a little bit more. We need to support it a little bit more and have the really top athletes out there competing on a regular basis. Maybe add a few more legs to it, make it a little bit tough. Like I said, you don't have to go to all of them. But just to make the general public out there more aware of World Cup swimming, and get out there and let's grow the sport with World Cup swimming. I also think it's a great place for all the coaches and athletes to learn from one another. I mean, I'm going on the World Cups. Chad's won the World Cup series for 3 times now. I think he's the first person to win 3 times. And I'm still learning from other people and other coaches and swimmers that are out there on the World Cups. There's always something new happening on those World Cups. And it's quite phenomenal how the camaraderie, when we're on the World Cups with the coaches and the swimmers, okay, how we get to talk so much on those things, whereas as a major competition, Olympic Games, World Championships, it's a lot more serious. That national team will stay there, that national team will stay there, and there's not too much discussed. But on World Cups, a lot gets discussed, a lot gets learnt, and the athletes are exposed quite a bit with TV coverage and so on. So I really like the World Cups. And I think we should grow the sport with the World Cups and really try and introduce it into the program, plan through it. I know it's difficult, especially with distance athletes. It's not as easy as, I think it lends itself more to the sprinters because they can recover a little bit quicker and get up there and go again, where the athletes doing the 1500s and that, they need a lot more work, and it's a little bit tougher for them to travel as much as the guys swimming the 50s, 100s and 200s. And it sounds a bit funny when I say that, because normally it's the sprinters that are moaning that they don't get to recover as quick as the distance guys, but obviously they don't need the work that the distance guys need. So those World Cups, I'll talk about what we did now with Chad over these last World Cups. There's a whole system of scoring points and accumulating your points to try and win the different clusters and to win the overall series. And what we did was we started off with only swimming a few events, We just felt that he had done a lot of work and he was a little bit tired, so we wouldn't swim him in most of the events. We actually didn't swim a 200 fly until we got to most probably the third or fourth World Cup. We hadn't swum a 200 fly yet. Everyone was asking us, why no 200 fly, no 200 fly? We were swimming other events. We were swimming the 50 frees, 100 frees, which he's not too bad at. I mean, he's been going all right. 46-1 and 21-1 is not so bad on 50 and 100 free. So, so he's been doing those events, and maybe it's a little bit of a mistake for me because now he likes the sprints, and maybe he doesn't want to train so much for the 200 fly anymore. But eventually we got onto the 200s, and he swam a medley and things like that. So the plan was to start off slowly and try to finish really hard and try to possibly even break 1 or 2 world records along the way. But bearing in mind all the time, not fully shaved and still doing some work and getting ready for the event coming up in Doha. Miles, on the other hand, and I'm going to talk a little bit about one of the other swimmers because just going back to the other slide where you have to work with the different swimmers, and it goes back to what Andrea was talking about, putting the right package together for the right athletes, and that Miles being a 400, 1500, and 200 freestyler, he's got a little bit more different events and a little bit tougher events, especially on the World Cup series where you go 1500 and you sit 15 minutes or 10 minutes and then you have to get up and race a 200 free. So that's a pretty tough double, 1500, 10 minutes, 200 free. But those of you who watched the World Cups, he was pretty good on that. I think he was 1440 or something, and then got up and went 143 and won the 200 free like 10 minutes later. So that's a pretty tough double to do. And, we didn't, if you noticed, Miles didn't swim all the World Cups. There were a few reasons for it, but mainly one of the big reasons was that being the athlete he is to the athlete Chad is, he couldn't sustain the competitiveness throughout the six or seven legs to be able to give some really big performances. So we planned, going back to the planning of the competitions and the racing and training, we planned that we want him to have a really big competition here in Doha. So we only brought him in for the last 3 legs of the World Cups on the Asian leg, and we left him off the first few. On the other hand, I had other guys going out on the earlier part of the World Cups, namely Lee Shankton, one of the sprinters, 46-7 or something on the 100 free, and so they were out early on the World Cups because I just believe he needed more rest coming into Doha. So you have to know your athletes, you have to know how to plan it, and that's what we've been doing, and that's how we've been traveling and racing and doing everything like that. So it's been working for us, and I just hope that some of the things I've spoken about, unfortunately there is maybe I can get them a slide. There's one slide missing. It's not there, I've looked. Maybe I can forward it to them, and it shows the plan of how we plan the whole year, competitions, racing, training, and competitions again. So I'll definitely try to get that slide to them so that when they put this whole package together that you can see how we plan it out. People asking me, is it the athletes? I honestly believe, with the performances of, let's talk about Chad, the performances of Chad, he is a special athlete, and it's really great to be able to work with an athlete like that. And they ask me how he just keeps doing it. It's adaptability. I think it's the way we train back home, and then the program that's been instilled with him for years now. I mean, he's been with me since he was 8 years old. So he's kind of adapted to the program of this training and racing and training and racing. So it's adaptability. Miles, on the other hand, he came to me a little bit later. Miles has been with me since he was 13, so only 10 years. Chad now going on for 15 years. But once again, Miles has started to adapt to the program. And I think it's about adaptability and whether the athletes gel with the whole setup and buy into the whole system. And once again, it's how you manage those athletes. I really believe in the Alex Ferguson theory about managing your athletes. I believe in what Andrea was talking about. Every person has their own position, and they need to take care of business like that. What Andrea was talking about was really out of this world, amount of testing and things he does there. We don't have anything like that at all. And I think it's really great to be able to manage something like that. But once again, it all boils down to the coach in the middle, like a puppet master. He has to control everything and make sure everything is working in sync with one another. So, it's no good the sports scientists working there and the strength conditioning there and the swimmers there and everyone's in the dark. You have to be able to put it all together. And I think that's where the coaching comes in. And even if you read the book, Alex's book, I'm sure John in the back there has read it. He's nodding his head. You read about how he even took a back step from coaching the actual team. So he's got his guy. So he was basically just managing who would play on which days, explaining to the athlete or the player, it's not your time to play now, it's this person because I'm saving you for that one. Exactly kind of how I like to think that's how I've worked it out. But telling this one not to go to that competition, rest for that competition, and plan it around that, and work with all the people around us. We do have strength conditioning, we do have sports scientists working with us. We even have the Japanese sports scientists following all our moves 24/7 on the camera. But working with everything and coordinating everything like that, I think that's the way forward. And if we can get it right and get out there and the budgets allow for it and your federations and everything on board and if you have the support of your Olympic Committee, we've been very fortunate. The Olympic Committee, the federation, that has really bought into the whole system of what we do. And as long as you get the results, I'm sure they keep buying into the system that we're using. And that's the way we're going to do it, and that's the way we've got planned right up until Rio 2016. So there's no real big secrets out there. I'm sure all of you are doing the same thing or trying to do the same thing. And I recommend it. I think it's working for us. It's really great to get out there and travel the world and see different things and race different people. And that's how we'll do it right up until 2016. Maybe after Rio we'll have a look and rearrange a few things and maybe learn from any mistakes we make or maybe add some other things that I feel need to be added. But the big thing for us at the moment is the Doha experience that we're going through with the altitude, and we're going to see how that works out. So far, like I said, it's a new project. So far for us, it's been good, and we'll see how it goes this next year leading into Kazan. And obviously we'll work with it right up until Rio and see how that pans out. But the altitude thing is new for me. We've never done that before. As I said, last year was the first time, and Doha are guiding us in that way at Aspetar and Aspire, and we're working really closely with them, and they're guiding us along the way on how that's going to pan out. So all going well. Hopefully we should have a good result over the next year or two. But the planning, that's the most important thing. That's just Chad and Miles there at one of the World Cup legs. And that's about it. That's how we plan it, and that's how we do it, and that's how we've been doing it in South Africa for the last 2-3 years. Yeah.
My question is, I am interested in the altitude chambers here in Doha. Do you think, or do you experience it works for all your athletes, so sprinters as well as the distance guys, or do you see a change?
Yeah, obviously it's different for everybody. That's what we experienced now in the last year. There's different time frames for it to work for different people. We noticed that. So some people may, after 1 week, get really good result from it. Some people may take 2 or 3 weeks to get a result from it. But in general, for all of our guys, we had sprinters there and we had the distance guys there. I think everyone gained a little bit from it. I really do. I think the distance guy, Miles and Chad, unfortunately it didn't work so well for Chad. Chad was really sick but he was sick prior to coming into the camp. But for Miles, I did definitely see a bigger difference. I saw a big difference on the 200 fly girl. So I think a little bit more for the distance guys have worked a little bit better. But in saying that, then all the sprint boys at the Commonwealth Games really performed really well. We had a 48-1 from one of our guys who'd never been under 49. So, and whether it was that, I don't know. I don't know whether it was the altitude that made that difference. You know, I think over the next 1 or 2 more camps here, we'll be able to get a better insight to that. We'll get more readings on how their body changed and whether the altitude did work. So at this stage, I couldn't really tell you. I just believe it kind of helped everyone somewhere.
You said some you see a good result after a week, some after 2 weeks. How do you determine?
How did we know?
Yeah.
Because from here we went straight to Mar Nostrum.
So it's
So
just
we
on
started-
your, it's
so-
just your perception and your
So
feel
it was
and
just
your
what we
experience.
saw racing like over the next 3 weeks after the camp. We went straight from Doha into the Mar Nostrum.
Thanks.
Was the altitude set at the same level for every athlete, or was it a little bit higher for the sprinters or lower for the...
No, we started off and we gradually built it up, and they took it all the way up to 3,000. So by the end, everyone was sitting on 3,000. There was no difference for each athlete. I think next time round, we will look at different altitudes because, as I said, it was new for me as well, and some kids were experiencing a few different things to other kids, so maybe we need to just address that, and I'm sure the scientists and the doctors and that there will realize that for next time, so I think they'll change that. Why, just quickly before you ask the question, why I liked the idea of Doha and the chambers, and that is because I like the idea of living high and training low, because training low, I just feel that I could work the kids a lot harder than if you're living and training high, you know. If you're living and training high, you've got to adapt the first, whereas here I could go straight in and just really work. So a bit of a time difference, it helps with the time. You don't have to spend as much time, I don't think, and I like to work the kids at a really good race pace when we train. So I preferred that. Yeah.
How long are the training camps that you spend in the chambers?
How long was I here in Doha?
Yeah.
We were here 2 weeks. We were here 2 weeks, so, and they were spending about 15, 16 hours. So we were going out for 2 hours in the morning to train, 2 hours in the evening, okay? And then the rest of the time, other than a little bit of downtime, maybe to do a little bit of strength conditioning for an hour in the day or something and things like that. It's not like we're in a small little chamber. It's like a hotel. So it's like hotel rooms, and it's all pressurized. It's all altitude, and then they have a common room where the kid, which is also at altitude. So it's not like we're all in little chambers and we're confined to a small space. It's like a hotel, but it's all put to altitude. I don't know whether I should be telling all of you this. Maybe I won't get a booking next time. Maybe it'll be full here in Doha next time. Van der Berg. Cameron. Yeah, well, I'm not actually Cameron's coach, so I'm the national coach now. But Cameron trains with Dirk Langer, who will be talking a little later. But he's around. He's here in Doha. Cameron is here. But he doesn't travel with my group. That's what I was talking about, where we're going around. That's with my group. It's not with. I wear 2 hats in South Africa. I'm the national coach when it comes to major competitions and all that. But I still actually coach my own team. But Van der Berg is around. He's here. He's here to swim. No problem.
Some other question? No more question? Thank you very much.